Justice Surya Kant, Judge, Supreme Court of India. My Lord, please.
Shri MCRHRD, Honorable Chief Minister, State of Telangana, Justice Vijay Paul, Honorable Chief Justice in Action, High Court of State of Telangana, and Patron-in-Chief of the Telangana State Legal Service Authority, Justice Shyam Koshi, Executive Chairman of the State Legal Service Authority, Telangana, my distinguished sister and brother judges of the Telangana High Court, Dr. Jitendra, IPS, Director General of Police State of Telangana, Ms. Cynthia McFrey, representative of the UNICEF India Chapter, Learned Advocate General of State of Telangana, Member Secretary Mr. Bharat Parashar of the National Legal Service Authority, Member Secretary of the State Legal Service Authority, and other my dear judicial officers, very senior officers of the police department, senior administrative functionaries of the state government who are present here. We also have among us Mr. Santhan Krishnan, Live President of the Commonwealth Lawyers Association, distinguished dignitaries, jurists, statesmen, police officers, social workers, ladies and gentlemen, friends from media. When Honorable Chief Justice cited a very emotional nazm of Nida Fazli, I immediately recollected Maria Montessori, a very celebrated pedagogue, and what she said about child. I quote her: "It is the child who makes the man, and no man exists who was not made by the child he once was." I think this statement communicates everything with respect to a very serious issue which we intend to deliberate in this one-day conference. These words of Montessori also remind me that the well-being of our children is not merely a moral obligation, it is the foundation upon which all of society is built. The child is not just our future, they are our mirror, our responsibility, and our greatest test. Today, as I stand before you, I cannot help but echo the statement of Montessori, because I am of the firm view that if we fail our children, we are not only failing them, we are failing the very soul of our nation. I therefore wish to applaud the distinguished speakers who have preceded me. Their remarks have incisively addressed many of the urgent and layered challenges in the realm of child protection. I find myself in strong agreement with the issues that Cynthia has raised, or Honorable Chief Justice and Honorable Chief Minister have raised. I see it as both a duty and a privilege to build upon those reflections by offering a perspective grounded in constitutional values, judicial insight, and our shared moral responsibility to the children of this great nation. At the outset, I would like to express my sincere appreciation for the untiring efforts of the Women's Safety Wing of the Telangana State Police and the Telangana State Legal Service Authority in organizing this event with exceptional commitment and vigor. I also commend the United Nations Children's Fund, Madam Cynthia representing, whose pioneering work in uplifting child across the globe is undoubtedly unparalleled. This conference, I believe, is a concerted attempt to confront the silent suffering of the most vulnerable among us, our children. Even today they remain most susceptible to neglect, abuse and exploitation. And in a country like ours, where their numbers are staggering, the stakes are even higher. I rely upon the UNICEF 2024 report, according to which 24% of the India's population is under the age of 14. 1 in 3 Indians is below the age of 18. This amounts to over 345 million children, more than the total population of many continents. These figures, while astonishing, are not merely statistical marvels, they are a moral reckoning. For a nation so young, our greatest asset could also too easily become our gravest liability if we fail to protect, nurture and invest in our children. Potential does not convert to progress on its own. It requires systems, safety and sustained care. Each child we fail is not just a personal tragedy, but a lost thread in the fabric of our nation's future. This demographic reality places upon us an extraordinary responsibility, one that cannot be met with token gestures or fragmented responses. Every act of abuse, every moment of neglect must be seen not as an aberration, but as a collective failure. If we neglect our children, we forfeit the very future we hope to build. We must consequently confront what we are often too afraid to name, the child sex abuse. Make no mistake, this crime does not occur only in dark alleyways or distant corners. As Honorable Chief Justice rightly pointed out, it happens within homes, schools, neighborhoods and institutions. Places we instinctively consider safe, it is a violation that hides in plain sight. And it is not only a criminal act, it's a betrayal of trust, of childhood, and of the constitutional promise to protect our most vulnerable. It makes a grave failure of our collective guardianship, and if I can say, it's also a failure of the state's parents' patria responsibility. What makes this abuse especially heinous is that its harm runs far deeper than physical injury. Its wounds are often invisible but lifelong. Fractured self-worth, chronic anxiety, depression, PTSD, and tragically, you must have seen sometimes even suicide also. But the long-term damage goes even further. Research increasingly shows that children who suffer such trauma are more likely to become withdrawn, economically marginalized, or emotionally unstable adults. Worse still, there is the risk that some may perpetuate the very cycles of abuse that once endured. These are the outcomes no enlightened society can afford to ignore, and therefore we need to be overconscious about it. The law is enacted, of course. We have the 2012 Act, which is a very robust legislation. It brought a long overdue legal overhaul, which is gender neutral, comprehensive, and child sensitive. It recognized, perhaps for the first time, that the justice system must be adapted to the child, not the other way around. But a law is not only as strong as its implementation. Special courts remain unevenly distributed. Police forces are often undertrained in trauma-informed investigation. Schools rarely speak about consent, autonomy or safety. And even in judiciary too, we are insufficiently sensitized to the unique vulnerabilities of the child victims. In light of these realities, the path forward must be carefully and compassionately charted. There is where the agenda of this conference becomes so vital. As a lifelong student of law, I have experienced firsthand how even well-meaning systems often place disproportionate emphasis on punishing the perpetrator, while the child, whose life has been irreversibly altered, is left unheard, unsupported, and often re-traumatized by the very mechanisms meant to help. Justice becomes synonymous with conviction instead of recovery. If some of you will recollect, in 2014 onwards, I have been speaking about invisible victims of system, and that is what precisely I meant to say. Consider the case of a 10-year-old made to recount her trauma repeatedly. Before whom? To a teacher, a police officer, a medical examiner, a lawyer, and then a judge. With each retelling, her voice grows fainter until it vanishes altogether. This cannot be called justice. It is distress compounded by process. When the system forgets the child in its pursuit of the accused, it fails them both. This imbalance is not incidental, it is structural. That is why the focus on rehabilitation at this conference is both timely and necessary. Our child protection framework, though well-intentioned, remain disjointed and under-equipped. What we need is a fundamental shift, one that sees the child not as a passive witness in a criminal trial, but as a person in urgent need of sustained and holistic care. True justice for a child begins not in the courtroom, but in the moment they feel safe and secured within and outside the four walls. It begins in the hands of a counselor, the embrace of a caregiver, and the assurance that they will not have to walk alone. Reintegration must not be an afterthought. It must be the foundation of our response. Because a child's healing is not just a legal requirement, it's a moral obligation. And in this context, and knowing the Indian, our societal background, it is a constitutional commitment also. As we look to the path ahead, one truth becomes abundantly clear. The task of protecting and supporting child victims is far too important to be left to the legal system alone. Not only is it a responsibility of the judiciary, police, or social workers, it is in fact a collective national duty. Every institution, every stakeholder, and indeed every citizen has a role to play in creating an ecosystem where children are safe, heard, and helped. We must move away from reactive justice to a more proactive, compassionate model where rehabilitation is not a footnote but the foundation. In this regard, I would be remiss not to acknowledge and commend the pioneers' efforts initiated in the state of Telangana and particularly in the city of Hyderabad. As the Director General of Police explained, the Bharosa centers here have really emerged as a model of what integrated, victim-centric support should look like. By offering a one-stop facility where child and women victims of violence can access police assistance, legal aid, medical care, and psychological counseling under one roof, these centers exemplify what sensitive and holistic justice delivery should aspire to be. They demonstrate that with the right vision and commitment, it is possible to ease the child's journey through the justice system, minimizing the pain and agony and maximizing the care. Similar appreciation is due to the NALSA's novel child-friendly legal service scheme of 2024, which envisions a trauma-informed, child rights-driven ecosystem. It is not only ensures courtroom dignity but the provision of psychological care and compensation to the victim. It is my earnest appeal that such best practices be assimilated and adapted across the length and breadth of the country. Whether it is the level of the state policy, institutional design, or community intervention, we must commit to replicating and scaling such models. Let us therefore take inspiration from what has worked and build upon it, ensuring that no child anywhere in India is left to navigate trauma alone. In doing so, we not only uphold the letter of the law, but the spirit of our Constitution, which promises every child the right to dignity, safety, and opportunity. I would like to conclude at this juncture by briefly alluding to the words of a stalwart of human rights, Nelson Mandela, who once rightly said, and I quote, "There can be no keener revelation of a society's soul than the way in which it treats its children." Ladies and gentlemen, our work is far from complete until our children experience meaningful restorative justice, where the systems meant to protect them do not re-traumatize, and where their healing is prioritized outside along with accountability. This conference has brought together a range of voices, legal minds, administrators, caregivers, jurists, and protectors, united by a common purpose. But beyond the deliberations and draft recommendations, that's my humble submission, we must take back with us a renewed sense of moral urgency. Laws, however well written, are only as effective as the compassion with which they are implemented. Systems, however well structured, are only as just as the people who operate them. Strengthening the POCSO framework and child protection ecosystems will require vigilance, innovation, and above all, empathy at every level. Let this conference, therefore, mark a turning point not only in the policy but in a national consciousness. Let us vow that no child will be made to feel that their pain is a footnote or that their dignity is conditional. Let us make our nation not merely compliant with law but radiant with justice, for it is in the safety of our children that the soul of our republic truly lives. Thank you very much. Thank you for giving this opportunity. Jai Hind, Jai Bharat.
Thank you, my lord.